Everything you said we already knew, more or less.
Well, here's something that you didn't know.
Hey everyone, welcome to the third episode. I'm releasing these weekly, but I am recording them sort of day after day, so that I have a good sort of stock of videos to be able to release, just in case I get busy with work or other things. So as you can see today, my hair is absolutely crazy. The other two episodes I had a hat on. The wind wreaked havoc on my hair today. So hopefully you don't mind. I know I'm just a little small box, but let's not let it distract from the photo. So let's get into it. The first part, the story. As you can see, this week's photo is black and white. Again, it's another shot from the Tonquin Valley hike. The only difference is that this one is on the hike out, and it's in the last probably 8 kilometers or so. And it's a view that we would have seen on our first day going into the valley. But it definitely was not as nice going out weather-wise. But photographically, it was way nicer. The drama from the clouds and the sun, like the whole way back was sun on and off. So we got snowed on our second night on the hike, and that made us decide to hike back. So on our way back, it was still snowing and raining, and then at the last maybe 10 kilometers or so, it started clearing up, and then it would go back. So it was just on and off throughout the entire day. We had to cover, I think, 26 kilometers in the one day, and in order to get back to the trailhead, and it was absolutely exhausting. Like, I think I mentioned before, I wanted to just fall over and give up. It felt like my toes were just like peeling off, and my feet were so sore because they were wet and soaked, and I don't think they had dried for 2 days. Oh my gosh, like, it was just horrendous. It was just absolutely exhausting. But yeah, I was always trying to be optimistic. And in this photo, took a snack break, and saw this amazing cloud sort of float through the valley slowly. And then the river was actually being lit up by the sun perfectly, so that there was like this nice glare on it, which is why you can see that there's like, it's very prominent. If there wasn't any glare, or if I used a polarizer, it would just blend in with the ground and would blend in with the trees. So I made sure not to use a polarizer or a filter of any sort, so that I would be able to get this river looking very prominent, and lead you from left to right back into the valley. Another thing that I really liked about this photo was the clouds, obviously. Like, the whole time we were going, we could see the clouds sort of going down and into the valley as we were hiking up out of it. Because like, we had to go up onto this big hill and sort of onto the side of the mountain in order to get through the one part of the hike. And this is one part where it led us. So I'm going to get into the editing aspect now. I'm going to try to keep these videos under 15 minutes, hopefully. I don't want to sacrifice the story aspects, because I really do want to get better at storytelling and sharing about my photos, because I think that's a big thing with creativity, is that with creating things, you have a message that you're saying. And if you aren't saying something, then people are going to say something for you. And with all my nature and landscape photography, I want the message being said of just like remembering how pristine things are, and remembering how untouched certain places are. A lot of people will put people in their landscapes to show some scale, and I've done that before too, and I think it looks really good. But my personal favorite images are always ones with no one, and where it's just a pristine landscape, and there's maybe some other things that show some scale of like how grand the scene is. And I think nature does a pretty good job of that, because generally you know how big a tree is unless they're just monster trees or tiny trees. Generally, you can make an estimation. And then also rivers, like this obviously isn't a small creek, and you can sort of see the depth from these trees that are closer to me and then the trees that are further on the other side of the mountain. But yeah, so into the photo, edit. Yeah, so let's start. My exposure, I boosted it by 50. Oh, that's what I was forgetting. I was forgetting to do a before and after. Let's always start there. So that was before. Obviously, it goes back in color. Let's just go easy convert to black and white. And so you can see how it is overall pretty flat. Again, not as much detail in the clouds. Just like yesterday, a lot of the shots, there was fog or clouds, and I want more detail in them because you can see there's a little bit of detail, but not always to the extent that you see either in your mind or in real life. So let's bring it back to what I have it at. Boom. So that's obviously way more contrasty. And again, I dropped the highlights and boosted the shadows to get more detail in the trees here. Let's do a quick before and after here. So yeah, you can see the trees are just like black. So I wanted to bring those out a little bit to get some detail. And then the highlights again were to get detail in the sky. And then my black and whites I like to have really contrasty. So contrast was at 41. And I could have raised it up higher, but then I'm losing some detail in the trees that I wanted there, and I'm getting a little bit too contrasty in the sky for my personal preference. Yeah, I mean, it looks decent, but I definitely want that detail in the trees. And then overall, I just raised the exposure by 50, or half a stop. And the whites, again, for a white point. And for some, oh yeah, the river there is the white point. It's not super prominent, but it's there. And then the trees down here are the black point. And then clarity again to bring in some detail on the trees as well as in the sky. And you can see before and after there. And then I applied my general preset, which sharpened it 55. And did the lens corrections for me. I think I'm going to start skipping through that part. And then if people start asking about it again after these first few videos and new people are coming, then I'll go back to it and mention it again. Also, feel free to ask any questions along the way because I'm always going to be available to answer them. And I love being able to help. And there is a phone call. Sorry about that. Anyways, back to the edit. The color or the grayscale coverage, I don't really play with these too much. The default seems to do a pretty good job, but the reason I didn't play with them here was because there wasn't a whole lot of prominent color. There was a little bit of blue in the mountains and stuff and green from the trees, but it wasn't like a super saturated super saturated scene. And yeah, so I just left it at default and let the auto do the job, and I think it did fine. And then to effects, again, dehaze brings in so much detail and really adds a unique style of contrast to the clouds and the trees. And then a little bit of vignetting, and that sums it up for that panel. And then again, I went with a 4x5 crop, and you can see I just adjusted for the tilt there was, because I think it just because we were on the side of a hill, the scene looked a little askew. And I cropped out the part of the hill that we were hiking on because there was just rocks there and they were reflecting the light pretty heavily. So I got rid of them to not distract from the main river and the mountain that I was focusing on. So we'll go back there. And next, the spot removal brush. I don't think I really did anything there. I know I did paint in a little bit of spots, or maybe I used a gradient, because I wanted to darken this corner here. And maybe it's not showing up now. Oh yeah, it's there. So why isn't that showing up? Oh, right here. So yeah, you can see I just took a really fine brush and painted along there because there was a little bit of brightness, like very minimal. I did a lot more painting before I cropped the photo. I should have cropped first, but yeah, let's just take a little bit of attention off this corner here, and the vignette helps with that quite a bit. So I think that really sums it up. I don't really have too many other things that I'm going into with the edit. Overall my editing process is really simple, but it's mostly to show you that you don't have to go through extensive measures to make a nice edit, at least a nice edit in my opinion, and that you can accomplish it through pretty simple means. It's just a matter of knowing how far and what looks good, and also your personal preference and style. That's something I'm still trying to figure out, and I hope you do too. So if you have any questions about the story or about the edit or the final image, do you like the final image? If you do, comment, like, and subscribe if you want to see more of these. This whole process is pretty exciting. Every time I record one of these videos, I look forward to it, and I hope you do as well. If you have any suggestions of extra information you'd like, or following up with certain photos, then I'd love to do that. Eventually maybe I'll start like a vlog style where I bring the camera to video myself on a shoot, on a landscape shoot, because usually it's just me and my camera, maybe some friends, but overall not super hard to do. And I didn't go over the settings in this, sorry, but just F10 to get these trees in the foreground sharp, and same with the mountains, and then 1/250th of a second because I really didn't want to have any camera shake from being tired and maybe being a little shaky, and then 35 millimeters, and that was really just to crop out some of the unwanted scene. I didn't want to put on my 7200 because I didn't have it with me, and yeah, and then 16 would have been too wide, and I wouldn't have been able to, I would have had to make a bigger crop on what I had already done. But yeah, sorry for doubling back there on the wrap up, and it's been another good week with you all. Thanks. Peace.